Good morning. I'm Nikki Lunsford, and this is Edward Long, Pastor Edward Long of Antioch Baptist Church, right? And we're on the east side of Muncie at the corner of Butler and Macedonia, right? All right. Thank you for talking with me this morning, Edward.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be the one you talk to.
Okay, so what we want to get down to is your life and the life of your church and your community. So for the Middletown Research Study, we want to know what's going on in this important part of our community.
Okay.
So first, tell me about you and your road to a pastor, your faith journey.
Well, I grew up in this church, and actually I've accepted Christ at age 13 a few years ago, and I've been here ever since. It's a little unusual for someone to grow up in the church to become the pastor of the church, but the former pastor by the name of I.P. Broaders, he made me assistant pastor, and then from there, I became pastor upon his recommendation and upon the recommendation of the deacons of the church and ultimately the members of the church. Yeah.
So how long was he the pastor here?
He was a pastor here from 1944 to 1994.
So he was your
50.
pastor as a child too.
That's right. 50 years.
He raised you.
Well, yeah, you could say that. Yeah, he raised me.
Okay.
And I became a minister in 1980, June of 1980. And from then on, it was training time, education, and learning to do different things, in the church, and learning how the church functions, and just watching him, and other ministers who he associated with, and learned a lot. Yeah.
And then so he stepped aside in 1994, you said?
1994.
And that's when you
Yeah.
took the helm.
Right. 1994. Yes.
What do you see as your main responsibilities for your
My main-
congregation, for God, for the community?
My main responsibility is preaching and teaching.
Okay.
That's my main responsibility. We have others, deacons and other members of the church, who take care of the other functioning, taking care of all the members and doing things around the church and all that. They take care of I'd say about 95% of that. Actually, they do a pretty good job. They do a pretty good job in taking care of the members we have. We don't have quite as many members as we used to have, but they still do a wonderful job in taking care of the members. We had one member who was sick and was needing some help financially because she had been in the hospital down in Indianapolis for about three different occasions. So she wasn't able to function as much economically, and keep things going. So we do have a fund that helps in that whenever that happens, and she was very appreciative of it. She was.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you don't have as many members as you used to. Can you tell me about the ebb and the flow of the congregation, the numbers and the life
The
of
congregation has changed quite a bit. We have, I would say, 70 to 75% seniors. And we have the other 25% are mainly young people. And I mean from 20 down.
Oh.
Which is quite a bit. So we're missing that middle age group. And that's the group that we're hoping to try and get them to see that they need the Lord, need to come and learn the different values that the Lord was always teaching us. And I think that's almost to every church in this community. That's something that's and there's 7 churches in this community of different faiths, but most of them have the same problem. And I see it when I go over there. Sometime I'll go to one of the churches maybe to give a gift to someone there at the church, and you can see how many, there are elderly, how many youth, and how many middle-aged. You can kind of see it. So it's kind of a community-wide problem. It really is. Yeah.
How do the youth get here if their parents aren't here? Because
Well,
I'm hearing the parents are the ones that are missing.
Some of the youth got here because they came from other locations. Their parents came from others, either cities or parts of the city, or came in and they had children, and then once they were here, they had sometime more children, and that's how we've got a group of about 25 youth that are really dedicated to the Lord. They really are. Yeah, I took them, matter of fact, Tuesday, I took them over to a pre-anniversary service over in Anderson at one of the churches, and they sung. And
Nice.
the pastor, it was for him and his wife's pre-anniversary service, and they really enjoyed them. They did a wonderful job, and they're a good bunch of youth. They really are. Their grades are up high, and they just respect. And I remember when my wife she had her knee surgery, they would come over and sing for her. They would come over to the parsonage, which is right next door. They would sing for her. And she would ask them, what did you learn in Sunday school? And, what did you get out of the Sunday school lesson and everything? And one of the little boys learned, he wanted a pickle. He seen a big jar of pickles. And he said, Miss Long, can I have one of those pickles? And she said, yes, you can have one. And he's never forgotten that. And my wife gave his mother a little money to get him some pickles. But last Sunday, he come up to her again. Do you have any more pickles, Miss Long? He came right back up to her.
A pickle, a hug, an affirmation, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah.
And I think you have candy in your office they come
Yes. I guess I'm called the candy man. They come after service. I kind of lock it up.
Yeah.
I have to lock it up, and after service, I open it up after we, visit with our guests and visitors a lot of times, and then they'll go in and get them some candy. Yeah.
That's fine. Is it safe to say that the congregation is declining or growing with the influx of the young families? What do you see there as?
With adults, it has declined some. But with the youth, it's kind of went up. It's strange. It's not, I guess you call it the normal situation, but the youth, I think youth kind of draw youth.
Yes.
And they've got a strong bond with the youth that we have, and we've got actually three supervisors that are helping with them, and they do a very good job with them, and we're very proud of them. But I think it's declined as a general occasion. For example, when I was here, there were about maybe 140. Well, there's about probably 95. There's probably about 95 who attend fairly regularly.
So
there has been a decline.
when was it 140?
I would say about 15 years ago.
15 years ago. And then it's declined. Okay. About 15 years ago, isn't that about when the company started leaving?
Yeah. I think that may have had some to do with it. Because, Chevrolet, Warner Gear, and Delco Battery, and other, smaller companies that did leave. Ball Corporation did leave, and that did have some effect on it. It did have.
Okay, we'll get into more of that effect in a little bit. But for now, aside from the membership, so keeping and drawing, what are some of the other key challenges facing your church and this faith community?
Trying to get people to see in the community that much of what's happening in our community, and of course there's violence in quite a few communities, and that includes this one, to see that they need to change their attitudes. The attitudes, the behavior is what's the problem, and I think part of that is because a lot of them weren't raised up under like Grandma and Grandpa used to raise. Some of them were raised by younger parents who had not been brought up in the church, and I think that's part of the reason. I think that's why many of them have gone astray, and kind of doing their own thing. Yeah.
So that kind of leads me to how your community around here has changed.
It has changed, and actually in the last 4 or 5 years, we've had I guess you call it an influx or increase of Caucasians in our community.
Oh.
We've had an increase, quite a bit of increase, and it hasn't been a problem or anything, but it's just changed. It's changed.
What do you think has caused that?
I don't know whether some of the other communities are not as inviting, or whether it's the rent or leasing or the buying of homes is lower. It could be that may be part of the reason. And the community has a pretty good reputation for it, because I think in the paper about 2 days ago it had 3 national awards for the community association in this very community. So I think that may have had a little bit to do with it. Yeah.
And that's called Whiteley Community Association, and it is very, very active, if I'm not right.
Yes, it is.
They meet regularly, and they've got goals for the community, do they not?
Yeah. They've broken the community up into 7 sections, and someone is responsible for each section. They have their various responsibilities, and they have people that work with them in each one of the 7 sections. They really do.
How many of those are paid positions?
Oh, they're not paid at all.
But now I think, don't you have an executive director?
Yeah,
that
we do have
finally
an
is
executive
overlooking
director.
that, and
Yeah.
and he's a paid position. And,
Right,
And I
he is.
met Mr. Woodson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Widget.
Good
Yeah.
man, good man. What role? So you've got your Whiteley Association. What role does this church and the 7 churches in this area play in the greater community?
Well, actually, most of the members in the Whiteley Neighborhood Association are members of these 7 churches.
I'm not surprised.
So that, the influence of them is going to bear, heavily on what they want to do and accomplish. They just got through building at one of the churches here a Black History Museum.
Oh, Schaefer Chapel.
And installing solar heating, the whole works, and I think it was about $30,000 or $35,000. They accomplished that. So there's things that can be done. Yeah.
In the last few decades, Muncie has experienced considerable economic and social change. And so you kind of briefly hit on that. What ways have these changes impacted your church and this faith community?
Well, of course, there's been a decrease, but one of the ways in which it has increased is in learning. We have more people who are learning than there was when I first became a pastor in '94. So I have 3 classes on Wednesday. I have a morning class, a 5 o'clock, and a 7 o'clock class.
Bible classes?
Awesome. Yeah, Bible classes, and the morning we're going through the whole Bible, and we've gotten to the Gospel of Luke, starting at Genesis, and it's taken us over 22 years to get there.
Oh, good grief.
So we've slowly went through it, and it's a great joy. And then we review the Sunday school lesson at 5, and then we're going different books of the Bible in the 7 o'clock class. And I have another minister that we kind of team teach in that class. Yeah.
Okay. What are the numbers in those classes, may I ask?
In the morning class, there's about 10. In the Sunday school class, there's about 13, and in the 7 o'clock class, I would say there's about 14. So it's up. It's up from where it was. It was lower than that years ago.
So the employment in the area, which is affected a lot by these companies that left, did you see a difference in the employment level of the area around here?
Yeah, a lot of people in the community, some of them lost their jobs because of it, and actually, I'm one of the ones that lost their job because of it from one of the factories here, and it's affected the community. We've had a lot of people who have left to go somewhere else for jobs, especially to Texas and Oklahoma. Those two states have gotten quite a few of our people. They really have.
Okay, so when they left, what positions did they tend to hold in the community? Did you see an impact in the social life of the community when those families left that lost their jobs?
Some of them were leaders, and of course someone else had to step in. But most of them were factory workers and held various jobs in the stores and different things like that. So that's mainly the ones who had to leave.
Would you say they were middle management, or were they folks on the line? Were they upper management?
I would say that many of them were folks on the line.
Okay.
Folks on the line,
Right.
and some of them were members in one of these seven churches in this community. They were members here, so it did affect it, and of course it obviously affected the the finances of the various churches, and so there had to be some adjustments had to be made in some of the churches, and sometimes other members would give more and make up the difference, but it was a change. It really was.
And when they left, did they leave empty houses? Did they sell the houses? Did they just pack up and go? What did they leave behind in their wake?
Most of them sold their houses if they were buying, and of course if they rented, they just turned in the notice on renting it at a certain time. But most of them sold their houses. They did. Yeah. Sometimes family members would buy them, and sometimes they would put them on the real estate market. And sometimes they'd sell them themselves. I've seen some of them too. So.
But in the past, you said long ago when this community developed, didn't you say that the people came and they stayed?
Mm-hmm.
And they stayed.
Yeah. They stayed, raised up their families, and stayed in the community. They enjoyed the community, and that's where they lived. They didn't. Many of them didn't go from this community here in Whiteley to other communities. They just stayed and raised up their families here. Yeah.
How is this church, this faith community, involved in the bigger economic and social life of the community besides the clergy group that runs so many good things? What is this?
Antioch has helped a lot of different organizations. Second Harvest, we've given finances to them several times. Covenant Ministries, which is another church, really, another church ministry organization. We've given to them, and YWCA, Muncie Mission, it goes on and on. There's quite a few of them that we've given to try and help them to help other people. And that's one of the mandates that the Bible tells us, to try to help people in whatever way we can. And this is one of the ways we try to help those organizations. Yeah.
And how about your celebrations that you have in the church here? What kind of community celebrations do you have?
We have we've had Black History
as a part of the big community, the big Black Expo community. That's so awesome.
And it's even more than just Whiteley and that thing. And we've had our youth have participated in that a whole lot of times. Black History Month, they participated in that. We've had various times when we've had we have another building right next door to the church, and we've had different meetings over there. Sometimes political meetings, sometimes community meetings. We've had those over there. So there's been quite a few different ways in which we've tried to help the community in whatever way we can. Yeah.
Joe, you told me you had a big community-wide vacation Bible school.
Yes, last year there were about 7 churches, and I think it was just about all of them in this community, but there were some churches that were not in this community were a part of it, and it's probably going to be bigger this year. Yeah.
How about how many kids do you expect?
Oh goodness, there's probably 200 and
Oh, I love
200, at least 200
I wanna
kids,
come.
but there's about probably 100 adults.
Yeah.
There's quite a few adults come to
Good.
this. Yeah, so
Good.
it's worked out real well, and I'm proud of it because one of my members is the one who suggested it and kind of got the thing organized.
Good.
Yeah, so it was really a beautiful thing. So we're going to have it again this year, and hopefully there'll be more churches that want to be involved in it.
Is it daytime or nighttime?
It's in the evening from 5:30 to about 7:30, and they have Bible study. They'll go through their
So it's
usual.
for all ages.
Oh yeah, we've got all ages covered. We've got plenty. They got quite a few teachers since you involve so many different churches and ministries. So it's and then if someone in the those that are coming, if they accept the Lord as their Savior, they whatever pastor is over that person, we assign, they're assigned to that church and that faith. So it's worked out well. It's been a more cooperative in the faith area than it used to be. There used to be antagonistic many years ago.
This
It
is
was
your
quite
church, this is mine,
antagonistic.
and now you're
Yeah.
working together. That's
It's changed.
That
It
is-
really has, because in the ministerial organization, there's about 4 different faiths in that organization that work together. Yeah,
That's exciting.
yeah.
What about, I think you told me that you do a sock drive for one of the schools, and you do something with Precious Hearts,
Yeah, the
which is a
youth.
preschool?
The youth have done that, and some of the adults have helped them. The sock drive at one of the schools here, Longfellow School, which is in the community, and Precious Hearts is one of the daycare centers. They've helped there, and they've done a lot of. The youth of this church have done a lot to help people. They really have. They went to the park that's close here, McCullough Park, and they painted some of the structures that are there. They've done quite a few things to help out, and very proud of them because they seem to be getting that real message of helping people. It seems to be coming across to them, and they have fun, just like kids
kids will
need
make
to
it
have.
fun.
Yeah, they have fun.
How do you do your clothing giveaway? And how long have you been doing that, and why did that start?
We've done that for about 2 years, and actually it was the supervisors of the youth who kind of got that thing going, and they've given it away periodically. There's not no real schedule on it, but when they get enough clothing together, they go ahead and give away. And we've had food where we've given away 2 dinners or lunches. We've done that as well, and it's just good to try to help people along, and some people are so proud they don't want to come in and get anything, but we just put it out there for them. If they would like to have it, they're welcome to have it.
Do you announce it? Do you
Oh, yeah.
publicize it? Do you just...
Yeah. It's usually put in the newspaper, and we have a sign out front of the building that usually has it too. So we do that as well. So, but it's just something that we feel is important to try and help, people in whatever way we can. Yeah.
All churches have told me kind of the same thing that you have. Once upon a time, you never locked a door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they've all told me that's changed. Talk to me about
Yeah.
that in your community.
That has changed because of the a lot of the parents, you could say, kind of fell down on bringing their kids to be learned and trained. Years ago, even if the father didn't go, he would have his wife and the children to go to church, even if he didn't go. And ultimately, a whole lot of times, the fathers finally would come on in and start going. But what has happened now, our children have a right now, I call it a right now mentality. Everything's right now. But the church is always has been about looking to the future, future and making plans for your eternal soul and all of that kind of thing. But since they have the right now mentality, that means they want everything right now. Right now, no matter who it might hurt or who it might.
No matter what the cost.
Yeah. It's I kind of call it a right now generation, really, and that's the kind of generation we live in. That's why. People have to lock their doors and put bars on doors and on windows and get security systems and have other people look out. Because years ago, when I was a boy, our door, and I grew up a little bit over here on Carver Drive, right by where the river road around the river there. We didn't worry about locking the door. I mean, you may have closed it, but you wasn't worried about locking it.
Do you think that has any correlation to the exodus of the companies? Because I'm hearing two sides of the coin. I'm hearing that you've got an influx in a larger youth population, but yet I'm also hearing that there's a youth population that is the right now generation.
Yeah, that's
How
exactly what we have, and it looks like the right now generation is a larger generation.
A larger
than the
proportion of
ones that I'm talking about that are willing to come into the churches and learn. The youth, they just don't feel that they have any hope, and that's what training in the church is all about, giving them hope. And I think some of them don't have that.
That's insightful. And maybe this isn't important for this study, but when those two groups of youth converge outside of these walls, how does that go over?
Well, hopefully the ones who have studied and learned the Bible will be able to at least convince at least as many as they possibly can.
Let's hope they don't get eaten up.
Right now is not the way to go, and I'm always talking about being careful, even in your own neighborhood and around your own area, because most problems happen when you're not careful around. You get too comfortable with something, and something can happen there very, very easily. So you have to just be aware of what's going on around, and you treat everybody, try to treat them with respect and let them know that you're and say hello to them. And some of them I just wave at them. My wife will wave at them, and sometimes we'll talk with some of them and see where they're coming from. But a lot of them just don't feel that they can make it without doing something, against someone else a lot of times. And I hate that, but that's where we're at. Yeah.
So we've talked about some specific examples of programs that this church has initiated to respond to that dislocation by the companies. Do you have some additional programs that you're sleeping on, that you're thinking about starting?
Well, we definitely need to start on, and we've kind of fallen down to some extent on this, trying to get some youth summits, kind of like a summit where we gather them together, and I mentioned not only this to some of the members here at the church, but I mentioned this in the neighborhood association that they're hoping to get a building here. They might have something like that, where they just sit down and talk with them and see where they're coming from and some of the problems that they have, and maybe some of those problems may be able to be alleviated. You may be able to solve some of those problems, and sometimes it only takes a little sometimes to turn someone to doing things right and respecting not only themselves and their those that they come in contact, but respecting elders and treating them the way they would want to be treated. So I've mentioned that already. Yeah.
Who runs Precious Hearts Preschool in the neighborhood?
A young lady, I believe, I can't remember her first name. Her last name is Young.
But it's independent of the churches.
Yeah. It's a private company. I mean, private ownership. Yeah.
Do
yeah.
any of the churches in Whiteley have a preschool going right now?
Let's see. I don't
Does
think.
Christ, or is that in Whiteley?
Which one?
Christ
Temple? No, that wouldn't be in Whiteley. No, there's none. None that I can think. No, there's none. And we do have, the Bewley Center and Motivate Our Minds that help quite a bit on the youth. But they're up a little older than just 3 and 4 year olds. They're usually a little higher in age.
You mentioned the building next door.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. What was it first?
Well, that was the first Antioch church, and actually only a portion of it was the first Antioch church.
Okay.
Then they built on the other section later on, and the minister who started that was a fellow by the name of Edward Duval.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out in history through Mr. Hurley Goodall's
Yes.
record keeping, we found out that he had the first bus line in the city of Muncie.
Oh, Mr. Duval did.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we've still got his picture over there, and his picture's still there in the building. It sure is. Yeah. So he was the first pastor of Antioch back in 1905. Yeah, he was the first pastor here. So.
So then, was he a pastor for 40 years before Mr.
No. There's been several. There was
quite
a
bunch
few.
before
Yeah, there's
the
quite
last
a few.
two
Yeah.
that have held
few.
half a century practically.
Yeah. There's been, I think, about 8 or 10 in between him and the pastor before me. Yeah.
And you mentioned Hurley Goodall. He wasn't a part of this congregation, was he?
No, he was a part of Schaefer.
All right.
Schaefer Chapel
Yes.
Church. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, where they have the African American Museum and.
But I
at the
thought
moment.
that the recent collaboration, or the collaboration between the churches was recent. So,
Oh no, you mean the different churches that come together?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's been going on a long time.
So tell me about that.
It's probably been going on since I was almost a kid. We used to have a fellow by the name of J.C. Williams of Trinity United Methodist Church. He was a part of a fellow at Bethel named Sanders. They were the early formers of this of the council. We call it the Collective Coalition of Concerned Clergy. They started it a long time ago. Yeah, and we've just kind of continued it on, trying to help in various areas. One of the things that we did was the sanitation department was having some problems with management, and we had one of a former pastor of Union Baptist Church by the name of W.J. Jackson.
oh yes.
Him and I can't remember the other pastor who was with him. They were able to solve some problems with that through the organization. So, the organization of the clergy has helped in solving some problems. We've had marches for peace and everything from McCullough Park over to Washington Carver Elementary School, and we've had it where it went all the way over to Hegan Park and different things, and there's things that we've done that have helped the community, and a lot of times you don't get credit for a lot of things, but that's all right. You don't have to
We know where
worry
credit
about
lies.
the credit. Yeah,
We know
you
where
don't
credit
worry about
lies.
all that.
But how organized? Tell me about the organization. Do they meet often? Do they meet when a need arises?
Yeah, they meet every second Thursday.
Okay.
And most of the time they meet here, but we've moved it around some. Matter of fact, the last time we met, we were at Second Harvest, took a tour of Second Harvest, and we were out there with I think his name is Reed, the head person out there, and he used to be in sales in one of the food stores. I thought he said Kroger's, but he used to be in one of the stores, and he took us on a tour, and we talked about his funding and where he gets stuff from. So it was interesting. It was really interesting. We didn't realize it was such a massive amount of food that comes through there. They have between $1 million and $1.5 million worth of food out there all the time. And it's always moving out, and some of it's always coming in.
Amazing.
It really is. It's amazing. You have to see it to really understand.
Did he say anything about the need for that being stronger than it has been in the last decades? Have you seen that?
Yeah, he did in our meeting. He said, "Yeah, there's a greater need. There's a greater need now."
What have you seen in this church as far as food insecurity?
We've had a few, but most of them here we haven't had a whole lot of people that have not in this church that
Just
that
the
have
kids
had
for
needs.
sugar?
Oh, the kids always want something.
Pickles and candy. Okay, so we talked about that larger organization. Does this church work outside of the Bible school and the clergy? Does it work with other churches or organizations and community programs?
I would say, other than Whiteley Neighborhood Association and helping with Bewley, they also work with the Livestream. As a matter of fact, we're trying to see if we can get that organized. There used to be a senior cafe over at the Unity Center, and we're seeing if we can get that thing moved over to the Duval Center right next door here at the building. We're hoping to, and it's just an organization for the seniors to get together. They have some food, and they just play games, bingo or something, whatever they like to do. Yeah.
All right. What role, if any, do you see for churches and faith communities in cultivating a sense of citizenship among your members? Citizenship for the bigger community and just the overall Muncie workings.
Well, I stress to them, try their best to get to the meetings, city council meetings, council meetings, and there's other different groups that do meet, and I just stress a lot that we ought to do as much as we can to help our leaders, no matter what whether they're independent, Democrat, Republican, whatever they might be. Just pray for them that they do things in a way that God is pleased with, and that they can do the best for the citizens that they really serve. So I stress that quite a bit. I really do. Some of them don't like the change in various, national and some local situations, but we still have to stick as much as we can with what the Bible says, and pray earnestly for them that they be successful and do the best they can for the people they're working for, and trying to make their lives better.
Right. The old, what is it? Honor your authorities. They are placed by God. And
Yeah.
give to Caesar what is Caesar's.
Yeah. That's in Romans. Yeah.
Okay. Do you see so you do see a connection between that and citizenship. What about evangelism and discipleship?
I stress that to them quite a bit. Our youth are doing pretty good. They invite various ones. Some of the older members are not doing as well as they should, of course, but stress that quite a bit, because that's what it's all about. That's really the first mandate of the church, to try and get people to see that because the more you listen to God's word, the more your behavior and attitude can change.
It can change.
It can change. It can change. And, some people think it's boring sometimes, but once I told them the other, this Wednesday, I told them 2 days ago that the Old Testament is most interesting part of the Bible, because once you learn how to pronounce the words and pronounce the cities, the stories are amazing. They are amazing stories in the Old Testament.
I always told my Bible studies just to say the first letter.
Yeah.
Don't even try to say those names and cities. Just say
Right.
the first letter and say,
Right.
okay, this is T, this is B.
And actually,
Go
that's
on.
what happened Wednesday in Bible study.
Is this-
Yeah, the first letter was said, and continue on.
So what time are your services?
The services start at 10:40. We have Sunday school at 9 in the morning to about 10:15, and then
Right.
10:40 they come out and they have devotion, or some people call it praise and worship, for a period of time. Then we have a short testimony, about 5 or 10 minutes, some letting others know what the Lord has done for them, and then we go just right into the service. And usually it's only about hour 45 minutes, maybe. It's not real long. Usually about 1 o'clock. Does
that mean an hour and 45 minutes, an hour or 45 minutes?
It's usually, the whole thing is usually about, let's see, 10:40, 11:40, 12:40. Well, actually, I was coming from the point of about 11.
Okay.
From about 11 to about an hour and 45. Sometimes
Okay.
it ends a little earlier than
Right.
1. So so they as long as it's interesting, they don't mind it being a little long-winded.
Right. And the singing is good.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you'd like to add, Edward? You've had such a good perspective on what's happened in this community here, and I can see your passion and love for this faith community in this place, and I got to meet your wife, Doris, and I love her to pieces.
Yeah.
So what else would you like to add?
Well, I'd just like to add that we have to try to unify as many people together as possible. Because if we get more unified, I think that will help us in the whole community, not just this Whiteley neighborhood community, but all the communities. It will help. And once they see that one community is unified, then it may very well become contagious. It may get to another community, and they're doing real well, and they're not all of one faith or one race or one ethnic background. So why can't we do the same?
So you're kind of saying even though the doors are locked, you're trying to open up the doors so people aren't as isolated? Is that
Right.
kind of what you're saying has happened?
Right. I think that's when you're isolated, a lot of times you don't know what someone else is thinking. But when you start communicating with them and start talking with them, then you begin to understand some of the things that others are going through, and you may be able to bridge some gaps, where there might be no bridge across the river. You may be able to try to build that bridge and cross over and have some kind of communication and some kind of success together. That's what it really should be about. It really is. Yeah.
It should be. Well, thank you very much. We've got a whole weekend ahead of us now.
Yeah, we can go on.
All right. Thank you much.
All right,
Appreciate
thanks.
your time and your efforts and your history.
All right.